Terry Acebo Davis is not your typical Pinay.
One of the things about myself being Filipino is I don't look, quote, typically Filipino, unquote, or Filipina. And, but growing up Filipina American, we had to kind of walk both sides.
Born in Oakland, California and raised in Fremont, this mestiza grew up having not a split personality, but a split nationality.
We had to follow all the morals and ethics our parents and values that our parents taught us growing up. But at the same time, they wanted us to be acculturated, and they didn't want us to speak Tagalog because they didn't want us to have an accent. They didn't want us to be discriminated like they were because they had an accent.
With her looks, Terry still wasn't exempted from discrimination. Even as a teenager, she encountered conflicts just for being Asian.
There were times when people would just flat out say, you know, you can't go out with her because she's Asian. They never could quite figure out what nationality we were, so we just kind of let it go by that we were probably Mexican or maybe Chinese or maybe Japanese, but people just weren't aware of Filipinos back then.
Terry then became curious about her ethnic origin. She read a lot about Filipino culture and history and learned for herself that much about being Filipino comes from the heart. Talking to her aunts, uncles, ninongs, and ninangs taught her more history than she could ever find in books. Terry knew from the start that she wanted to be an artist, but her parents didn't exactly approve of it. Being the eldest of 6 children from a modest household, she was pressured to sacrifice her dreams for reality. She took her parents' advice to pursue a career in nursing.
And it was a real difficult thing for me to do, but I decided to start taking art classes again. So I actually went back into art to get both a bachelor's in fine arts and a master's in fine arts later in life. I was able to work with a lot of different media and explore a lot of different ideas. But there was one professor that told me, you should look at your ethnic background as your source.
Terry used her mother's maiden name Acebo and her father's last name Davis as her art name, which has evidently helped identify her as a Filipino American artist.
My husband's last name is McDonald, so people often call him Mr. Davis, which we joke about.
Ultimately, her being a Filipina became the source of inspiration for her art. Spreading knowledge and appreciation for a rich Filipino culture became one of Terry's goals. One of the distinctive qualities of her work was the Filipino culture of having a sacred family, giving her family the starring role in her art pieces. She considers her print work Dahil Sayo as her masterpiece. It has traveled almost around the world and is a 6-feet image of Terry's mother screened 6 times to a simple plastic tablecloth to represent her 6 children. Terry says her pieces usually lead to her next work, which is why a simple photograph of the World War II veterans led her to make a documentary. Terry tackled political issues such as Imelda's Fault, and she has also been an advocate of women's rights, shown through her work such as Mail Order Bride.
I've been working on the idea of women having children, and why is it that Pinays are defined as breeders. And so I've done a lot of pieces using eggs and baby heads as a way to talk about how we see our children, how we look at our milk.
Working as a transport nurse at the Packard Hospital in Stanford for 27 years, there is never a dull moment in Terry's life. A typical day includes being up in a helicopter saving a child's life or helping children and their families go through some of the worst ordeals. And amidst the stress in her profession, it is her art that has kept her sane.
Well, I used to say I was a nurse artist, but I think I'm now saying that I'm an artist nurse. Because my parents have finally accepted that I'm an artist. And it's something that you don't retire from. I know someday I'll have to retire from the kind of nursing I do.
Terry's mixed media assemblages tell the story of her life as narrated through her art, and her experiences as a nurse brought soul into her work. Her many stories expressed in prints, etchings, lithographs, and drawings have caught the eye of critics, stating that her art has universal meaning for her viewers. But for Terry, its meaning is more personal. Her art made her discover the Terry within, a true blue Pinay.